Former US Attorney General Leonard Hayes, at 66 years old, firmly believed that staying active was the key to healthy aging. Every day, he jogged through the quiet streets of Maplewood, a small suburban town known for its friendly neighbors and peaceful atmosphere. But one Thursday morning, an unexpected event unfolded before him. As Leonard passed by an old bakery near a narrow alley, a muffled scream caught his attention. His curiosity quickly turned to concern. When he turned his head, he saw an elderly white woman struggling with two young men. One was trying to snatch her purse, while the other was yanking at the bracelet on her wrist. "Hey, leave her alone!" Leonard called out firmly. The two men froze for a moment, sizing up the older man, but when Leonard clenched his fists and stepped forward, they immediately bolted. "Cowards," Leonard muttered, watching them disappear into the shadows. He briefly considered chasing after them, but quickly dismissed the idea. His sprinting days were long behind him, and he wasn't about to risk an injury. Instead, he turned his attention to the woman. She was trembling, clutching onto her now empty purse strap. "Thank you," she stammered between sobs. They took everything." Leonard placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, Mom. Are you hurt?" Before she could respond, a police car pulled up beside them, screeching to a stop. Leonard sighed in relief. Help had arrived. He waved at the officer. The car door swung open, and Officer Daniel Brooks stepped out, his hand resting on his holstered gun as he scanned the scene. His eyes quickly locked onto Leonard, who was standing close to the shaken woman. "Step away from the lady," Daniel ordered sharply. Leonard froze, momentarily caught off guard by the officer's tone. "Officer, I was just trying to help. I said step away." Daniel cut him off, moving in closer. The elderly woman tried to intervene. "No, officer, you don't understand. He's not the—" "I'll handle this, Mom." Daniel dismissed her without a second thought. Leonard slowly raised his hands, trying to defuse the situation. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said calmly. But Daniel wasn't interested in explanations. "Keep your hands up," he barked. And at that moment, Leonard realized this wasn't about a robbery anymore. As Daniel stepped closer, Leonard kept his hands in the air. The situation was spiraling out of control in a matter of seconds. The elderly woman pleaded again, her voice filled with distress. "Officer, please, he's innocent." But Daniel wasn't listening. His full attention was locked onto Leonard. "What were you doing here, old man?" "Trying to make a run for it." Leonard furrowed his brows, his patience wearing thin. "Officer, I already told you I was helping her. I chased off the real criminals." But Daniel had already made up his mind. Leonard's words meant nothing to him. "You think I'm stupid?" Daniel snapped, his voice filled with hostility. "You can explain yourself in court." Leonard took a slow breath, keeping his voice steady. "You're making a big mistake." Daniel's hand inched toward his gun. "The only mistake is thinking you could fool me," he said coldly. By now, a small crowd had gathered, murmuring in concern. Some had even pulled out their phones, recording the unfolding incident. From within the crowd, a young man called out, "Officer, let him speak!" But Daniel wasn't hearing anyone. Leonard noticed the growing crowd, but he didn't let it distract him. He had to stay calm. Raising his voice or making sudden moves could escalate the situation even further. "Officer, I've been in law enforcement longer than you've been alive," Leonard said, keeping his voice steady. Daniel let out a sarcastic laugh. "Yeah? And I'm supposed to believe that?" The tension was unbearable. Daniel's finger hovered dangerously close to the trigger. Leonard knew he had to be careful. Slowly, he reached for his pocket. "Don't move!" Daniel shouted, raising his gun. Leonard froze. "I'm just getting my ID," he said calmly. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Don't try anything stupid." Leonard carefully pulled out a badge and held it up. The golden emblem gleamed under the sunlight. "Take a good look, Officer Brooks," Leonard said firmly. Daniel hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting between Leonard's face and the badge. The crowd leaned in, holding their breath. A deep silence filled the air. As Daniel read the words on the badge, it took a few seconds for it to sink in. United States Department of Justice. Then, Leonard's voice cut through the tension. 0534. My name is Leonard Hayes, former US Attorney General. Daniel's grip on his gun loosened instantly, and he quickly lowered his weapon. His face turned pale. Sir, I didn't know, he stammered. You didn't know because you never asked, Leonard replied, his tone firm but controlled. You made assumptions, Officer Brooks, and dangerous ones at that. 9. The crowd started murmuring. Someone whispered, that cop is done for. The elderly woman, now emboldened by Leonard's authority, stepped forward. He's telling the truth, she said. He saved me. Those young men ran off the moment Leonard stepped in. 6:18, Daniel stuttered. It was a mistake. I didn't mean any harm. Leonard wasn't so quick to let it go. Pointing a gun at an innocent man is more than just a mistake, officer. It's a serious breach of protocol and trust. By now, additional police units had arrived, responding to calls from bystanders. Daniel's superior, Sergeant Peters, stepped out of one of the patrol cars. What's going on here? He asked, his eyes shifting between Daniel and Leonard. Leonard held up his badge and calmly explained the situation. Peters listened intently, his expression growing more serious with every word. 6:59. Brooks, is this true? Peters asked. Daniel lowered his head, unable to meet his superior's gaze. Yes, sir. Within minutes, Daniel was placed on administrative leave, his gun and badge confiscated. Leonard watched as the officer was escorted to a patrol car. Once the dust had settled, Leonard turned back to the elderly woman. Are you all right, Mom? She wiped away a tear but managed a small smile. Thank you for standing up for me. And for yourself. Leonard gave her a reassuring nod. Justice isn't just about courts or laws. It's about doing what's right. And with that, he continued his run. The once quiet streets of Maplewood were now filled with the respectful gazes of those who had witnessed it all. And that brings us to the end of our story. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more interesting stories. Have a great day.